Hey y'all, we're backstage at the Grand Ole Opry with our guest Larry Paxton, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his career, how he got started. So tell us about the transition from LA to Nashville, because a lot of people still do that.
But Jerry Fuller actually took me here, brought me here. He was mad at me for leaving, but he said, well, if you're going to go, let me, he was looking for songs for Goldsboro. So he took me up and down Music Row, and I had met this producer named Ron Chansey. I had booked a big United Airlines show where I met Janie Fricke and all these Bergen White and all these great Nashville people. That was right before I moved here, so I knew all these people coming in. Jerry introduced me to all his there were producers, publishers, up and down Music Row, and people that I consequently started working for, because he built me up big. He said you need to hire this guy. I basically hit the ground running. I just went right to work. I was a little surprised about the demos in Nashville. My first check was $36, and I looked at it and I went to the union. I said, "What is this?" That's a demo. I went, "You gotta be kidding me! Like, how can you live? That's not good." Because we had a deal in LA where we would do $50 a song, or an hour, whichever came first. So we were used to making $200, $300, $400, a chunk, not $36. And well, fortunately, that rate changed quickly, and so demos were a large part of my work at the time, and the songwriting thing kind of tapered off because I was playing so much, and it's like playing's fun, writing's hard. It's work. I regret maybe not doing more of it, because it does make money while you're sleeping if you do it right. But I just liked playing so much that I let it slip. I just let the deal peter out, and consequently worked. Well, in the 80s, we were pretty much doing 3 sessions a day, 5 days a week.
And who are some of that I know you've worked with a ton of people, but who were some of the people that kind of stand out in your mind as highlights for some of those early sessions in Nashville?
You mean artists or players?
Artists. Yeah.
Well, one of the first was Alabama, when they just got going, and that coincided with me getting, just arriving. So I did a lot of their stuff for years, and then people. My brother was the bass player for Mel Tillis, so I met Mel. Mel was, I think he was male vocalist of the year in '78, right before I got here. So Mel was hot stuff, and he was a great guy. So and he had a very good publishing company, and I met his guys. So I worked for his company, played on his records. Mm-hmm. Barbara Mandrell, a little bit of stuff with Dolly. So, and back then too, there was a pretty active jingle scene here. So we did a lot of national jingles, and that's kind of dried up. But at the time, it was, and there wasn't much TV or film. I mean, none that I can even remember, except with the Opry. There was some TV, but.
So that was kind of in the 80s,
mm-hmm.
and then into the 90s and 2000s. Was it more records and more playing, or when did you end up at the Opry?
Well, what happened, I met my wife, Chris Wilkinson. She's a string arranger, and so I actually got involved arranging because she was so busy. I just kind of, by default, I would help. Because there's so much home recording now, everybody's got Pro Tools in their closet. So, but I do arranging and a little bit of composing. But my wife and I got involved with some film work in the early, 2001. Got together with Marty Stewart, a country artist, and we worked for Billy Bob Thornton, and we did a Matt Damon movie. It's called All the Pretty Horses. We got a Golden Globe nomination for the score. And that did a couple more movies for Billy Bob, and so we've worked on maybe half a dozen films. And so the Opry came about, I guess, let's see, this is 65. Oh yeah, it would have been 2003, 4, somewhere around there. They had a TV show almost every week, and the bass player at the time was primarily acoustic player. Great player. But sometimes on the electric stuff, if it was, I hate to say newer, but if it wasn't a real good fit, they would pull me in to do the TV stuff. And in a couple years of that, I guess they sort of redid the band, and I was part of that. And so I've been here, I honestly don't know, it's been at least 12 years. So.
And what's it like? This is such a different level. I mean, this is like the creme de la creme, the mother church, right, of
Right.
country music. What's it like for you to be standing on that stage in front of thousands of people every time you perform?
Well, I think it's a lot of fun, first of all, but the kind of the craziness, the randomness, the spontaneity, it's not like being in a band where the artist tells the same jokes every night, or there's repetition but not much of it, and we do a lot of new material, very little rehearsal, so it's high energy. It may sound easy at times, but it's not all that easy because of the volume of work that you have to crank out in a couple hours. So I enjoy that spontaneity, and it's some of this new music is a little more involved than it used to be. A lot more just rhythmic figures are more complex. I usually write the charts, and so my prep work has grown a lot. We get the music a couple days early, and I'll chart the stuff out, stick it in Dropbox, people can access it, so we get to work a little more prepared. Because you need to be. If you're not prepared, you're just going to screw up, and you can't do that. It's live.
Right. Right.
Mistakes are not an option.
Right. Well, so a lot of people that watch the videos and read my blog are musicians and artists who are kind of up and coming, and I always like to ask this question, sort of, what advice would you have to someone who is kind of coming onto the scene now as a new person in their career? What are those nuggets of wisdom that you would say have really helped you, and what would you tell somebody today?
Become a lawyer. No, it's funny, but I have 3 children. My oldest daughter from her first marriage, she's like almost 40 now, but she had a record deal, and before she became a nurse. She's got a gig. But the kids grew up around this, and I didn't push them. They could have done it if they wanted to, but they were exposed to it. But for people that really want it, first of all, it's a great time because the internet, the YouTube, video lessons. I mean, you can get more knowledge easily. I mean, when I was a kid, I had to put a record in headphones. And there weren't too, I lived in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and you can get stuff that I never dreamed I could, like you can see these people play and they'll break it down for you. So you got access to whatever it is you're interested in. And the other one is the usual networking, like if you're in Nashville, you go to the writers' nights. Writers are great people to know because they need musicians. And if you get in on the ground floor with some writers and they're starting out and you're starting out, it grows together. You can't just show up and expect to take over the town. People are loyal. You can be incredible. I know some great players, but it's not just about playing too. You got to behave yourself. The classic: show up on time. Mm-hmm. Don't be screwed up. You got to be a good people person. You got to get along. You can't be cocky. So there's a lot of the psychological part of, you got to be a good person with a heck of a work ethic, and but you also have to be prepared to do whatever it takes to, you might have to do a road gig. This town,
or a park a car gig.
well, yeah, because this town in L.A. Or even in Pittsburgh, when I grew up, I mean, you could make a ton of money playing in clubs, and it just doesn't. That doesn't happen here. Well, Lower Broad, I got to admit, there are people making pretty good money downtown now, but they're putting in human hours, But when I moved here, like you'd play the Bluebird or something, and you made $20, which wouldn't buy 2 beers, and that you can't really support yourself doing that. But some people do road gigs, or yes, you are waiters and waitresses. But the main thing is to network with like-minded people. That's where you're going to learn a lot. You're going to meet people, and it blossoms from that.
This is Chantel Ogden, and you've been watching the Songwriter's Journal blog.
Bravo.